I am very happy to be with you all today and very excited for this month's topic. My name is Elissa Shuffman. I use she and they pronouns. I'm with Move Minnesota and I facilitate our network calls every month. Um, and I will let the rest of the folks introduce themselves as we move on, but I'll give a little intro to the network and then we will get started because there is so much that our friends at MnDOT have to share with us today. Um, who are we? The Minnesota Safe Routes to School Network is hundreds of dedicated professionals from organizations, schools, communities across the state that are making our school communities places where students can walk and bike safely, no matter their race, their income level, their age, their ability, anything about their lived experience. Um, uh, like I said, my name is Elissa Shuffman. My coworker Max Singer is the tech support for today's call, so you'll see him bumping in and out of the chat and making sure that we have the recording done for today. Thank you, Max. And would love it if you could introduce yourself in the chat. Share your name, pronouns if you're comfortable, where you're calling in from, and for today's icebreaker, something that you're excited to hear about as far as grants, or if you haven't thought far enough ahead to know what you're going to hear about today, some past Safe Routes to School success that maybe was made possible by a grant like this. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to the entire MnDOT team for the MnDOT update, and then more from MnDOT. So Kelly, I think you're up first.
Sounds good. I'll get my screen sharing. And thanks everyone for joining us on this beautiful Thursday in October. We do have a lot of content. We're going to start with a MnDOT update and then we're going to roll into our presentations, which there's a lot. So be ready to use the chat box. If you have any questions, we'll share contact information of each of the grant managers who are speaking today. And then also we do have a network call, not a network call. We have office hours that you can hop on and ask specific questions to your grant applications or your Safe Routes programs. So I'm actually going to pass it over to my wonderful colleague, Sophie, to do our MnDOT update.
Hi, everyone. So just a few upcoming Walk Bike Fun curriculum trainings happening yet this month. St. Paul in October 7th and Red Wing on the 10th. Again, reaching out to Angela if you have any questions or need assistance on this, but there are two that are still planned for this fall. Next one. Just finished up prior to the meeting. We have launched our network call survey. So this survey really is to help us gather the input on the topics, resources, and trainings that will help serve all of you in your Safe Routes to School work this next year. So if you could take the survey, it takes 9 minutes or less. It would be super valuable. And we're going to gather all that information to make sure that we are creating resources and trainings that help you all make this program a success. And we'll drop in the links for all of this as we go. Another reminder, we all know it, but next Wednesday is Walk to School Day. So hope you all have fun events taking place. If you do talk to folks, just remind people that there's more students that are out on that Wednesday before and after school times. Another just note is...
Oh, I went too fast. Sorry.
It's okay. Toolkits. So this is resources for you if you have questions on guides, if you need postcards, bingos, things like that. The Resource Center does have a lot of resources for you to use in your communities. Next slide. And then another reminder, the photo contest. So we love seeing your pictures in your community. So please submit your photos on the Facebook page. It will still be active. And we will be downloading those and gathering them to share who won the photo contest of this next year. And then lastly, as Kelly mentioned, our office hours. We really want to highlight this. If you have a question on a grant, join the office hour. If you have an invoice question, join the office hour. If you have a new idea, join the office hour. You'll get quicker responses from us than emails. So please do this as your first step if there's ever a question, wondering, want to connect. They're twice a month and we'll be on there, and no agenda, just there to chat. I think that was all.
All right. Thanks, Sophie. I tried to drop the links for some of the things that Sophie was talking about, so you have those resources. If you're like me and you like to just open things and look at them after the call, you can click there. Otherwise, please know that Max will send out notes and links after the meeting. So you will get everything in addition to a recording of this meeting in case you want to share with partners, since it's some broader information that might help them consider future grant opportunities. So MnDOT has construction season and grant season. So as construction season is winding down, we are getting into our grant season of things, which is why today's call is all about grants, and how you can fund your work to make walking and biking safer, easier, and more convenient for students and your community members near you. So we are going to just do a very high level on all the different grants that are coming out that relate to safe routes to school. We won't have time for a ton of questions and answers throughout this presentation, so we can give you the content at a high level in this short hour. There are some informational webinars that have been or will be held related to these grants. Otherwise, we will drop the contact information for each of the grant managers who are presenting today, so you can follow up with your questions to them. Otherwise, those office hours that Sophie just talked about will be fantastic to jump on. And if you have specific questions, you can do that. Most of the grants you have a couple months to work on, so you can work to do that at a later time. So again, chat box if you have questions. Otherwise, we will just start rolling into here. So the grants we're going to talk about today is planning assistance, design assistance, boost grants, state aid infrastructure grants, our transportation alternatives program, and then we also will talk a bit about the active transportation planning assistance grant as you advance your safe routes efforts to a community-wide approach. I guess I'll move this because I do have links in the bottom maybe that you can see. Okay. So the first thing that's relevant for all the grants is some of the data that you need to collect. And I'm sharing this because it is good if you don't have the data and you need to get it ready for a grant application, do it in the warmer months. You'll have a little bit larger walk bike rates to kind of showcase in your grant application. It's also easier to get teachers or the school to help you get these rates earlier in the year than later. So ways to do that, there's two ways. There's our student travel tallies, which we've done for decades now with Safe Routes to School. And this is to get the actual numbers of students walking and biking. The grant applications will ask you the number of students who live in the walk or bike zone. And then we also want to know the actual numbers of students walking and biking, and that will help us show the opportunity for improvement through these grant applications. If your school or school district participated in the Minnesota Student Survey in 2022, we were able to include a travel question in that survey. So I will drop the link, and we have it available. We will have it available on the website as well on how to get that data. But a quick snapshot here is this link. You'll go and you'll put in your school district. You have to use 2022 data. That's the only data we have. It's a new question. And then you can pick your grades and demographics, run the report, and then you are looking for the school category question, and then travel down or get to the bottom. And this is what you'll see. So you'll get the walk, bike, school bus, family vehicle, carpool, or other. And you can kind of utilize that data for your grant application. So two different ways to get that data, depending on if your school participated or if you have student travel data from planning assistance last year, you could use that too. We just ask that the data be as accurate as you can do. And then we have our equity score, which I'll throw it over to Sophie, who helped us revamp this over the summer. Sophie, you want to talk about the student equity score?
Sure. The STEP score. So we've used this in the past several years. We just updated a few things. So this is available on the MnDOT website. We can drop the link for that. There's the web-based map that you see on the right here that you can click the dot. You can search your school name. There's also an Excel spreadsheet that you can download and search your name as well. An update for this is the STEP score factors. We have included students experiencing homelessness as well. So all 5 of these factors are from MDE, what they gather from their Minnesota report card, I believe it's called. So that is what we're going off of this year. And then your score is, you get a point. So you get a 1 if you are above the Minnesota average for that. You get a 0 if your school is below the Minnesota average of each of these factors. So the highest point you can get is a 5. The lowest you can get is a 0. Next slide, Kelly. And if your score is low, we acknowledge that these are just 5 factors, and there's so many things that impact walking and biking. So even if your score is low, there will be an open response question on the application where you can explain why there is additional support needed, where the barriers are within your community. In addition, if you don't see your score, so often private and charter schools may not be listed on the MDE website. Gather those 5 factors, send us an email, and we can create that score for you. So it's not to make another barrier, another thing to jump through, but it's really thinking through how can we best and most equitably distribute the funding that we have across the state.
Perfect. Thanks, Sophie. Again, step score, just go put it in there. The step score is only the highest that applies. So just because there is a top number of the step score doesn't mean that we're going to have applications from that. So don't fret too much on that. It is just a way to reduce the subjectivity of our review panel that we have. So the first grant I'm going to talk about is the best starting point for Safe Routes to School. This is our planning assistance grant. This actually helps provide a consultant to develop your Safe Routes to School plan. It also helps you gather a Safe Routes team of stakeholders in your community, in your school, and other partners you may have for this work, and get everyone talking about the same barriers on the same page and identify what those strategies could be to remove the barriers and make it safer, easier, and more convenient for students to walk and bike. There's a lot of engagement sessions that go on. There's some community assessments and looking at the existing conditions of the built environment around the schools to help really understand what those barriers are. We have a lot of preconceived notions of what they may be, but it is different in each community. And then the final plan you'll work together to develop strategies to address those unique barriers, and you'll have strategies for all 6 E's. So I want to reiterate, this is not just an engineering plan or to develop a sidewalk plan. This is going to be a comprehensive approach of education and encouragement strategies in the school, as well as changing the built environment around the school and through the neighborhoods nearby. So we do need to make sure that you have school and your community's support to do planning assistance. So if you're just starting out with Safe Routes, planning assistance is a really great way to build the same knowledge base, figure out the barriers, and identify strategies. We've been doing planning assistance for over 15 years, so maybe you have a plan for a community near you and you're like, do I apply again? What do I do? We don't require Safe Routes plans to be updated on a frequency basis, but if you need an update because you're really restarting efforts, you lost all your momentum during COVID, there's a lot of staff turnover, no one was around who did the first plan, then the whole planning process might be really supportive of your efforts to get everyone back on the same page. Or maybe you're a rock star and you've completed a lot of the action steps in your plan. Doing a new plan will help you get some new strategies to work forwards. And remember, sometimes we make improvements and then there's unintended consequences. So this can be kind of an iterative process that we make improvements and new ones emerge. And so that's some things to consider. Maybe you don't need the full plan update. You have a strong team that's engaged, and maybe you just need to focus on updating the engagement data and some of the equity data in your plan and do just a little amendment to the plan. And that you can do by yourself. You don't always have to come through us to do these. These plans are yours for your use. And so there are ways that you can make those updates outside of this grant activity. But we do have some resources online that will share more about the planning process. Just a quick grant overview. The grants are due on the 17th. Everyone will be notified by March. The planning process takes the full school year. So we'll start sometime in the summer to get the ball rolling. The process will go throughout the entire next school year of the 25-26 school year and then complete before the school year ends so that your team can start to think about action steps building into the next year. Applicants can be city, county, tribes, school districts, RDCs, RDOs, or MPOs. And whoever that applicant is the key person that will work with our consultant. So just make sure that's the best person who will be able to have more meetings with the consultant than the broader team. So it can be anyone there. And again, letters of support from the city and school. And this is not a direct funding. We do a contract with a consultant to help you do these plans, and these consultants have done other Safe Routes plans, so they can bring some of that information forward for you. So I'm going to shift gears and hand it over to Mitch in our office, who does design assistance, which we are launching our second solicitation for.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kelly. Okay, so as Kelly said, I am Mitch. We'll talk a little bit about design assistance here. And this is really a newer program that we're offering that is step 2 after planning assistance. So you go through your Safe Routes to School plan. You have this comprehensive report that goes through all the 6 E's. And as a part of that, you're also identifying locations where you know you want to have improvements for students walking and biking, whether those are lack of sidewalks, dangerous intersections, busy roadways, or any other type of physical barrier that we have in the way, making it less safe for students to walk and bike to school. And so this step, this program, design assistance, focuses primarily on one of the E's of engineering. And so this is going to help people figure out what exactly do we do at these locations to improve safety, to make people feel much more comfortable walking and biking in the area, and especially having parents and caregivers allow students to walk and bike to school without as many concerns from vehicle hazards. So these, if we think about them, are very similar to engineering studies. This version of the program, design assistance, is just more streamlined and simplified to help us get some reports out and to keep this program moving in a way instead of taking multiple years, helping to streamline this through just multiple months. So the purpose of this program, so this is really just to help applicants determine these next steps for construction. And so here we see an example of a decision matrix where we have all these different types of intersections and these different columns that show the way that they are categorized and thought about to help people who are working here with our consultants to say, what do we want to do with this intersection? What do we want to do with this highway, this busy crossing, this dangerous area? Here are 3, 4 different options, and here's how they all rank based off of the different values that we want to be thinking about as we're going through this. And so it really helps create that framework for how much a project would cost to build, and also going through the different types of alternatives. And so the big intent behind this is to help boost both those federal and state grant applications. And I believe we'll be discussing that state infrastructure grant later in this discussion. And so this is designed to really tie in right into that process. So that way applicants have a report, they can turn around and say, hello, MnDOT, we would like to build this. This is how much we think it's going to cost. And these are our intended benefits. We go to the next slide here. So funding. So this grant covers the entire cost of the report. It's just like planning assistance, where this is at no cost to the applicants or the recipients. Also, any necessary data collection. We'll go back a little quick there. Any necessary information we need for data collection we'll also have as a part of that. And then also, we're going to go up to 10 projects will be selected for this round. Okay, next one. Eligibility really quickly here. So 4 key things we're focusing on. So that's going to be a government agency, and that's going to be our cities, counties, townships, tribes, schools, and school districts. You'll note I did not mention nonprofit organizations. So if you are a 501c3 or a nonprofit that is working and partnering with your communities, the community itself will have to be, or the school will have to be, the primary applicants on this. We definitely encourage collaboration and helping. But that key contact and that key applicant is going to have to be your community. Also, Safe Routes to School plan. So this is our next step after our planning assistance. In here, we have a cutoff date of you need to have a plan that's from 2018 or later. And we do that just because, as Kelly mentioned, our planning process is very comprehensive. There's a lot of information, a lot of surveys, and a lot of data that goes into developing these plans. But also at the same time, things change quickly. If you have a plan from 2018, that means your data is probably from 2017. And this grant for design assistance gets people launched next year. So 2025, next year, back with data from 2017, that's already 8 years old. First graders are already on their way to high school. Middle schoolers have already graduated and moved out. And so things change in that much amount of time. So we just want to make sure that the data in the plan is relevant to the areas and the projects we're working on. But if you have, we're working with a community that does have maybe not a Safe Routes to School plan from that time, or a different transportation plan that also has good data about, I would just say, key travel patterns in the area. They can email me. We can discuss it to see if that would be a qualifying alternative to the Safe Routes to School plan. However, we are much more focused on keeping it with our Safe Routes to School plans because we know what information's in those and then also what those next steps will be. Last two things here. So keep the school. We're just don't want to be working with folks that are having plans to close or relocate their schools. We know things happen, funding changes, and a school might end up closing within 10 years after this project is done. We're not going to ask for the money back. That's fine. We're just wanting to make sure we're setting up people for success. And last spot, 4 study locations. So that means this grant allows applicants to look at 4 different locations around their schools or communities to study what we could build there. Next slide, please. Then last thing here, timeline. So we did have some informational webinars. Those are available. The slides are available on our website, as well as our solicitation guide. The solicitation, is now open, and it goes to November 22nd. So that is quite a bit earlier than the planning solicitation timeline. This application, I believe, is a bit smaller than the planning assistance application. So it should be easier for folks to go through. We don't really require that much data entry. It's really just describing what you're trying to do, where you are in your Safe Routes to School journey, and then also a little bit of information on the schools that would be potentially benefiting from this. So not anything too arduous or too difficult, because we're going to hit the ground running right away in January, and we will get these projects going so that way the reports are finished by October of next year. So this is a very fast timeline to get people moving quickly through the spring into the summer, so that way they have plenty of time to turn around and apply for infrastructure funding in the fall. I believe that's it for me, right? Okay, fantastic. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mitch. If you want to drop your contact info in the chat, then people can follow up if they have questions. Otherwise, Mitch also dropped the link for design assistance if you want to look at the guide that's open, the application, and other materials he mentioned. Shifting gears, we're going to talk about Boost grants, and these are grants that are intended to support your programmatic efforts. We talked about a plan develops the 6 E's, really looking at the engineering, kind of gets into what Mitch was talking about narrowing in and focusing just on engineering. But we want to be able to support the other 6 E's in your plan. So Boost grants are meant to boost your program to the next level. Ideally, those are building off of strategies that are included in your Safe Routes plan, but sometimes you're starting out with a community and you need to build their trust or develop a partnership, and maybe a Boost grant is a way to start and kind of get their support and see how you can help that community, and that's okay too. So a plan is not required, but it can be helpful. And sometimes our communities we're working with don't have a lot of infrastructure needs, or the school is really remote and we're not going to see a lot of students walk and bike, but their Boost grant can be a way to help support them by implementing walking and biking education. So it's a great opportunity to partner with our rural communities in a way to still advance Safe Routes efforts, build physical activity into the day, and get our next generation being multimodal users. So a couple ideas to get your brains rolling on our Boost grant. Education E is a big one, and bike fleets are something we commonly fund through this grant opportunity. Our big focus with bike fleets is implementing the Walk Bike Fun curriculum in the school. That's kind of our priority, but we love to see those bike fleets also be utilized year round, and so they could be used in after school bike clubs or starting a maintenance curriculum that's after school in community ed, or maybe even in one of the school classrooms. Thinking about having these bikes to be available for biking field trips for the science class, or a group ride to celebrate the end of the school year instead of a pizza party. So thinking about some different ways to do that. We will fund kind of your general size, normal, typical bikes. We will also fund adaptive bikes. So maybe you need an adaptive fleet or just need a couple adaptive bikes to meet the needs of your DAPE education programs. We do also fund Strider bikes or the pedalist bikes that help students learn how to ride. So you can have a full bike fleet for that to work with the littles, or maybe just a few bikes to add into your fleet. So you can certainly vary it up. And then if you need bike storage, if you are requesting a trailer, please note you're going to have to justify that it's to move the fleet around. Otherwise, we encourage you to look at other more affordable options that have less risks of being stolen, which might be building a shed on the school grounds, building a cage in the basement for the bikes to be stored, or using a shipping container that the students can paint the exterior for, so that it's a fun amenity to add to the school grounds, but also stores the bikes in a safe, dry environment. So bike fleets are one. Encouragement ease is another strategy with a lot of opportunities here. So some of the things that are on this slide are related to staff time. And I just want to clarify staff time for this grant. First, it has to be just direct pay. We can't pay any overhead or benefits or anything like that. It's totally just a stipend or the hourly rate. And it's not meant to be like ongoing Safe Routes coordinator. It's really supposed to be a project coordinator. So if you need someone who is going to do all the purchasing and help make a plan and do some of the evaluation and support all the MnDOT reporting, that's kind of the project coordination time that we're looking for. So it has to be clearly tied to an activity proposed in the grant application. So some things we've seen with this would be launching a student safety patrol and giving some money for a teacher to be an advisor for it, and getting new equipment and developing a training plan and a reward program. Or maybe you're hearing from parents that they're just concerned about a crossing, and you want to show to the school district that a crossing guard would be a good endeavor. So you can do a 1-year pilot of a crossing guard and then do some evaluation, take that to the school board and see if you can justify a longer term person to be at that location. Walking school bus leaders, bike train leaders. Maybe you want to do a remote drop off, like Karma talked about at the last meeting, where every Friday kids meet at a certain location and you have materials, flags, safety signs, you have some education cards to hand out, and adults or high schoolers help the students walk those last couple blocks to school from that remote drop-off location. We've heard a lot from Jenny in Minneapolis, who's used a Boost grant to do a route maps for their schools and a citywide biking map for youth. So there's some things there. Looking at bike parking, it's not just about organization. Maybe you really want to look at secure bike parking or covered bike parking or additional bike parking, and then consider lock libraries so that if students forget a lock, they can get one from the front desk. Maybe arrival and dismissal supports your need, and you need some, sandwich boards or barricades to close off an entrance, or anything like that. Any signage or anything has to either be temporary or just be placed on school grounds. It cannot be on the right of way of the road. We also encourage innovation here. So maybe, one of our strategies in the strategic plan is youth engagement and empowerment. So we'd love to see some sort of youth involvement in these projects. Or maybe you're going to take the Green Club over for a year and they're going to focus on safe routes, do some walk audits, make some, suggestions to city council, the school board, and what the needs are to make it safer to walk to, from, or around school, and having those youth be the voices. So similar kind of public health approach that we've taken in other content areas. Developing a local safety campaign, our story walks, story strolls. Minneapolis again did a street harassment guide because that was the safety issue in there when they were talking with their students. So again, we might have resources out there, but you might need to take a local approach with a guide that's a bit about doing the process with your stakeholders and having an outcome that's really unique to your community. We're happy to support that too. So we have about $400,000 available. This grant will be due on the 17th of January, like many of the others. notifying you in a couple months. And then this work is intended to be for one school year. So starting in the summer of 2025 and then ending in June 2026. Applications can be all of our typical partners, but we also allow nonprofits to be a lead here. We just can't have any for-profit agencies be the fiscal host, but certainly they can be a partner in the grant or a partner in the grant writing, but that fiscal host needs to be one of these eligible applicants. And our grants need to be between $5,000 and $50,000. And please remember, this is a reimbursement only grant. We can't give you any funds up front. So whatever you're intending to purchase, you need to be able to have funds up front to make that purchase, and then we will reimburse you. So just think about that as you're planning out your boost grant ideas. I'll quickly talk about the next one. This is infrastructure funding. It's called Transportation Alternatives Program. And this is federal pass-through funding through MnDOT. So if you are in the metro area, the Met Council runs this as their regional solicitation that they do every other year. And so we can send the link on the Met Council's website to look up when that is, and you can talk with partners about that. Otherwise, every October, they launch the Greater Minnesota Transportation Alternatives Program solicitation. Safe routes to school and walk bike improvements are eligible strategies, but it's not just for those two category areas. Each region or each MnDOT district gets funding allocated based on their population. So each region gets different funding amounts from MnDOT. And then the regions, their ATPs, kind of their regional coordinating councils, work to review the applications and decide who will be awarded funding through this solicitation. So local reviewers understand local communities and are helping to identify the highest priorities for each of their regions. So this is another great thing to consider, a similar application to what Steve will be talking about soon with our state funded infrastructure. The only difference, or a big difference here, is that with the federal funding, this does require a 20% cost match. So the local community would need to have that. And then please note with infrastructure, I know we have a range of partners on this call, but our infrastructure, you do need your city or county engineer to either be the applicant lead. You can certainly help them fill out the application, or you can help them prioritize areas that need infrastructure improvements the most. But this is meant to be the engineer as the lead because they will be implementing it. All right, I think Steve is on the call and we'll take over this section to talk about our state funded infrastructure. Okay, I maybe not seen him, so I will just start to dabble in it. So our state funded infrastructure solicitation has $8.5 million available for infrastructure projects to support safe routes to school. This is 100% state funds. There's no match required. And the request can be as low as $50,000 or up to $1 million request for this solicitation that will happen in the 2026 construction season. This grant does require a letter of intent before a full application is done, which is great. It is a shorter way to see if you're eligible, if your project is a good fit for this application and get any feedback. And then the full application will launch in November, and the grants will close January 17th, just like planning and boost. So similar deadlines in January for this infrastructure solicitation as well. If you have questions about what could be eligible, what might be eligible, are you on the good path? Steve's contact information is there. So anything that's infrastructure related, Steve would be a really great partner to reach out to, ask your questions, and get some support from. And then you'll be notified if your grant's awarded in the later part of 2025's spring timeframe. If your partners have some really great bike and ped infrastructure ideas, but it's not really in the school walk and bike zone, or it doesn't really support students getting to and from school, it's maybe just sort of located near a school. We encourage you to think about the active transportation infrastructure solicitation. And this is looking more at a community-wide approach. So outside of the walk bike zones, this is a broader opportunity to improve the built environment for bicyclists and pedestrians. So you could consider it there. Maybe your Safe Routes team is really thinking safe routes to everywhere. And so you want to focus on a network that connects students or the school to the library, to a large park where you could do biking field trips to, or other, or prioritizing a route that gets people to a food shelf or other healthy eating opportunities. So if you're thinking about prioritizing some of those connections outside of schools to those other common destinations, the AT infrastructure solicitation might be right for you. Again, this is 100% funding. There is no cost share available. It is up to $12.5 million available. For this solicitation, again, with project ranges from $50,000 to $1 million. And then there are some different eligibilities options here that change in the metro area, but that's all available on the website if you have any questions to follow up. This is an eligible grant, both the Safe Routes and AT infrastructure for our cities, our counties, townships, and our tribal partners to apply for. So you might want to share these opportunities with your city or county engineers and see if you can support an application for this next round of funding. And that will be notified later this spring 2025. All right. Will, I see your hand raised, but I'm just going to throw the slides over to you.
Okay. So Kelly, I was wondering actually if you could go back to
Sure.
the infrastructure. I wanted to mention a couple of details that Steve would really love you all to know before you go into application mode. I wanted to start with a minor correction from what Kelly said. They do have a letter of intent period. It is not required.
Oop.
They have a letter of intent period. You are not required to submit a letter of intent, but it does allow the state aid team to provide some personal feedback or individual feedback on your project to give you kind of a go, no go, whether or not it's eligible or appropriate for the funding. So I know they recommend that everybody takes advantage of that opportunity. So letter of intent, not required, but definitely encouraged. The other thing I wanted to note was that they have the 100% state funds, but all community members should know that that does not include the soft costs of engineering and some of the construction management. So it's just for the actual capital investment that you are potentially doing in your community. And just they can't say this enough, but this is a funding pool that's not eligible for communities in the Twin Cities metro area due to other funding streams that are set up there. So that's all my additions to Steve's presentation. Thanks, Kelly. All right, we can dive in. I'm going to be talking for the next few minutes about active transportation planning assistance, and you can go to the next slide, Kelly. Just a quick introduction. My name is Will Wislow. I'm our active transportation coordinator within the Office of Transit and Active Transportation. I manage our planning assistance program. Some of you may know me from a previous stint at Richfield Public Schools or the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. I've been around this webinar for a long time. Nice to see many familiar faces. Go ahead to the next one, Kelly. So active transportation is slightly different than safe routes to school. Kelly kind of shared a shorthand that we have around our office of safe routes to everywhere. These are for communities who are looking to either go beyond or find a different solution for planning their walking and biking networks that don't just include schools as destinations or origination sites. They might be libraries, they might be parks, food shelves, banks, government buildings, other recreational amenities. These are plans that can help communities connect people to the places that they want to go through walking or bicycling. The way we handle our active transportation planning assistance grants is through a competitive process. You all are familiar with those, and we award communities some assistance through a consultant that we contract with. So no funds are exchanged. You don't need to manage the books. We just get to take advantage of all the resources and expertise of other folks who are really adept at developing these plans. Back, please. Got a little more to say on that first slide. Ultimately, what you get is an active transportation action plan. This can take a lot of forms. For many communities, it is a comprehensive citywide or countywide walking and bicycling plan that gives those community stakeholders a number of steps that they can try to accomplish over the next 5, 7, 10 years or so, be it infrastructure or policy implementation or programming, those sorts of things. But we also allow different kinds of plans, including corridor plans or really weird stuff. You know, I'm open to all kinds of different ideas. They don't just need to be a bike master plan or something along those lines. If you've got a wild idea, I encourage you to send me an email. My contact information will be there at the end, and have a quick little scoping call with me to see if it would be something eligible for this program. Planning takes place over the course of 5 to 8 months, and we really try to help you engage with key community stakeholders and potentially community stakeholders that have not been involved in transportation decisions before in your local community. And then we also, as part of our planning assistance program, have what we call supplemental technical assistance as a little after dinner mint at the end of the planning process. Go ahead, Kelly. I'll tell you about those. Before, we used to just provide every community with a demonstration project. Some of you may know what those are, but these are temporary infrastructure projects. These are things made with inexpensive materials. They're often very quick to install. They provide an immediate safety benefit and allow communities to test out concepts. Those are great. We love them. We installed one in Alexandria on Tuesday. That's very nice. Some multi-use trails along a busy road corridor. But we have also heard from communities that some of you all just don't want or need a demonstration project. You have some confidence in your infrastructure ideas, or the community needs something else. And so we, for our next round of planning assistance, are adding more of a menu to what people can receive at the tail end of this planning process. Those include basic cost scoping estimates or preliminary engineering design layouts. You heard from Mitch earlier about design assistance. You can think of this as like a very miniature version of what Mitch is offering, maybe one intersection or one section of a corridor, getting a design layout and cost estimate. We also offer photo morphology and visioning graphics. This is when you see like a fancy image from a consultant where you've got on the left side picture of the road as it exists today, and then on the right side what it could look like after potential improvements have been made, different alternates. This can be a pretty expensive product to create, and if this is what your community needs to advance your next active transportation project, we can help you get that. We're also able to provide program and policy implementation roadmaps for communities that might not know how to implement a complete streets policy or a new bicycle parking ordinance or something along those lines. We'll help you map it out and make sure that it has community buy-in. If you want some additional targeted supplemental engagement, something with a unique nature or engaging a specific group that perhaps didn't get a lot of engagement during the initial planning phase, we can do some planning and coordination for that. And lastly, strategic communication development. Maybe you need some new text for a website or a communications plan or something else that involves getting the message out about active transportation in your community. Go ahead, Kelly. And I saw Hallie's question there about when the timing happens. We conduct most of the planning and plan development over the course of the summer and fall. And at the end of the fall is when we start developing the supplemental technical assistance project, whatever that's going to be, for implementation or final delivery the following spring. So I guess what that means, a different kind of takeaway from that, is that if you're applying for this program, you should expect to be getting on calls with Will and the consultant team for about a year or so. That's what you're kind of looking for on a timeline. We opened up on October 1st for this planning assistance. It was a soft launch, and I guess this is actually the community debut of our active transportation planning assistance. So you all get a special treatment here. What that means is that our informational webinars are yet to come. You can join them on October 9th or October 15th. They are during the workday. You'll see links to those at the end of the presentation here. They're also on the Active Transportation Planning Assistance webpage, which I know is in the chat box right now. Our deadline is November 22nd. This is a short one, so I would encourage you to procrastinate on all of your Safe Routes to School applications and focus on mine instead. Thank you. We expect to announce our selected communities in the new year, probably pretty early. I'm expecting between 8 and 12 communities will be selected this year, and the work will kick off in the end of March or sometime in April. I'll wrap it up pretty soon here. Next one, please. Where do you apply? No surprise, on the MnDOT webpage. But when you go to the Active Transportation Planning Assistance webpage, you will also find additional information and context about it, a guide for completing the application, as well as the scoring rubric, a downloadable application outline if you just want to work on your desktop instead of work in the online form tool where you'll need to submit the application. So lots of resources, as well as my contact information. Next slide, please. I'm just going to quickly run through one important detail related to eligibility. The way our statutory language is set up, the entities that are available to apply or eligible to apply are cities, special park districts, counties, federally recognized tribal nations, RDOs, MPOs, and nonprofit organizations. I want to call out our two bolded ones there, special park districts. Technically, they were eligible before, but just want to call it out. This was something that was a question from applicants last year. If you do have a special park district, yes, you can apply. Also, if you have a nonprofit higher education institution in your community, as long as they have at least a part of their business structure, their organizational structure, 501c3, they are eligible. Nonprofits, like the other grants, do need to work in coordination with the local road authorities. So go ahead. This next slide will show you some of the communities who've already participated in our program. They really run the gamut of Minnesota communities, from our largest cities to some of our smallest cities. What I would like you to take away from this is that no matter what kind of community you're coming from, where you're beaming in from, this AT plan could be a good opportunity for you. And here's our webinar dates. Next Wednesday morning and the following Tuesday afternoon. I'm looking forward to seeing most of you on one of these webinars. Thanks for that in advance. Otherwise, feel free to reach out at any time. I like to shoot the breeze and talk about this program, so you're always welcome to hit me up. Thanks for the opportunity to present. Kelly, Sophie, Elissa, Max, appreciate it.
Thanks, Will. And his contact information is on the screen, and he'll drop it in the chat. And again, that will all be shared in the notes next week, along with the recording for this slide deck. If you want or need the slides before next week, just send us an email either to our general Safe Routes inbox or Sophie or I, and we will just send that back to you so you have it. I think that is everything. So we crushed these slides in record time. Hopefully it wasn't too fast and overwhelming for you. It was supposed to just touch on the high points of each of these grant opportunities to get your wheels spinning on what might be the right process for your community, your school, school district that you're working with. As ideas come up or questions come up, Again, you can always email one of the grant managers or any of us on the Safe Routes team. Sophie's dropped our general Safe Routes inbox too that you can send there so it doesn't get buried in my inbox, which I think we've all experienced in the last few months working with me. But our office hours really are a great time. You can hop on, take 10 minutes. You can just ask your question. We're all like sometimes just needing to talk through it. It's hard to write it out or write out your question in the way you're really intending for us to interpret. So those are twice a month going forward. So you could hop on in November or December or that first Monday in January if you need to get some help outside of emails or setting up separate meetings with us. So big push there. I think with that, I'm done with the presentation. So we do have a few minutes left. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat or you can raise your hand and come off mute to ask us or any of the presenters. While we're waiting for people to raise hands or ask questions, I will say if you've gone on the grant page and you're like, where's planning assistance and where's Boost? Those two grant guides are just going through the final review process in our agency. So we do intend for Boost and Safe Routes Planning Assistance to launch in October. It's just going to be a couple more weeks. We will notify you all through sending a separate email to this distribution list, to our e-news, sharing it through our other communication channels when it launches. So I promise you will know when it happens. Otherwise, for sure, at our next November network call, we'll make sure to remind you that these grants are open. All right. Tried to kill some time. Anyone have questions?
I'm not seeing anybody come off mute or jump in the chat, although I know folks were asking questions throughout the presentation and folks were jumping in the chat to respond to those. So that's really great. I can imagine that most people's brains, like mine right now, are very full. And folks might need a little bit of time to digest and figure out who do I want to ask questions to and what are my questions exactly. So appreciate you all taking the time. I do see one question from Tina around Boost grants and whether those can be awarded 2 years in a row. Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I can take that one. So yeah, Boost grants we can certainly award to schools. So if a school applies 2 years in a row, we can fund them for 2 years in a row, but we do ask that they are different projects. So we're not able to fund ongoing work. It's supposed to like launch or boost your program with a lens towards sustainability of whatever that effort might be. So you can fund a school for a walking school bus pilot for 1 year, and then the next year get a bike fleet. And maybe the year after you want to update your bike parking, you can do a Boost grant each year. If it's a larger school district and there might be multiple applications coming within one school district, just know that we do want to prioritize geographic parity. So making sure we are funding across the state before we start funding schools or school districts multiple times. If that makes sense. So these grants, you can bundle things together. You can have some incentives for walking bike to school day. You need to get an adaptive bike for your fleet. You want to do some bike parking and you want to get your crossing guards new gear. Package it all together in one grant application, and that works great. So there is some flexibility there.
I will come off mute. I tried to drop it in and then of course IT links didn't work. But we made a bike fleet spec sheet of everything that you have all asked for in grants in the past years, combined into one. So if you are saying, I'm really interested in a bike fleet, I don't know where to start, look through this sheet. It might help kind of shape where you want to go from there. If the link doesn't work, just let me know again, but I think I figured it out.
Thanks, Sophie. And that is going to be really helpful if you are doing a Boost grant for a bike fleet. You can get some numbers from there to work with or look at some of the vendors that have been used historically for that. So it's not an all-inclusive list, but certainly can help you fill out that budget if you need. I see Liz has a question about Chisago County. Let me run through everything you're eligible for. So planning assistance in Boost for Safe Routes statewide. Everyone can apply. Safe Routes to School infrastructure, statewide. Everyone can apply. Active transportation planning assistance, statewide. Everyone can apply. Where it gets a little trickier is on the active transportation infrastructure funding. There are some variations in the metro area that can be funded through that. So that is probably going to be a Steve question unless Will knows the answer to it, which he might. And then the other difference is the Transportation Alternatives Program. The Met Council runs that, their regional solicitation every other year. And Chisago County would be included in that Transportation Alternatives regional solicitation. Will?
I'm going to give you a 90% confidence answer, Liz. I believe Chisago County is eligible for active transportation infrastructure. It's the difference between the MnDOT Metro District and the Met Council region, and I think that Chisago is kind of like kind of in between those two.
We're very stuck in the middle here for
Yeah.
lots of things. So.
Yeah, and I think that the boundaries for the active transportation infrastructure project follow the Met Council's boundaries and not the MnDOT Metro District. But I said 90% confidence. I definitely follow up with Steve Prusak.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Then I'm just gonna, for folks who are watching the recording, the more general question is if you have questions about your geography and which regions you fall into, follow up with staff.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Yep. Anybody else? I'm not seeing any more questions pop up in the chat. Otherwise, I think I'll close this up. I haven't talked hardly at all today. I just got to listen and learn so much about MnDOT grants. It has been very educational as always. So I will wrap us up real quick if I can remember how to share screen here. Noting that our November call is going to come up, I think, real quick as we go through the fall and all get into school rhythm. So we're going to be talking about a school start time study in November, and then in December we'll do our typical year-end review. I will repost in the chat our Safe Routes to School Network survey, as Sophie put it in the chat. I think at the top of the call helps us plan these calls for you all and make sure that we are bringing forward topics that are of interest and support the work. And that make sure that we make sure that we're doing everything that we can to advance the great work that you all are doing. So please fill out that survey between now and whatever the deadline is. We'll follow up with the deadline in the follow-up email, and look forward to seeing you all on a couple more calls before the end of the calendar year. Thanks so much, everybody. I look forward to seeing about like what you all do in terms of applying for all of these great grant opportunities. I'm really excited that everybody's going to have such an abundance of opportunities to advance the work in the coming months and years. So thanks to the whole MnDOT team for supporting the network.